Hello my friends and welcome back. Well, here we are once again, me behind the camera, you watching for some reason. I'm grateful that you're here. I just wanted to discuss a few things that are on my mind. And I'd like to start off with Memento Vivo. Or Viver, rather. But you may have heard the term Memento Mori in the past. I've used it several times. It's Latin, it's remember you will die. And I figure if you're going to remember you're going to die, it's only natural you should look at the alternative and remember you will live. So, viver in Latin is live, but vivo is a better translation to what I'm trying to convey here. So, memento vivo would be to support life, to remember to support life. Meaning, remember that we are all here together as a species. And it's so easy to draw lines and to pretend like people are different. So many of the lines that we draw, let's say maps in general, they are just, they're created by other nations, right? So a nation comes in and they draw the lines. The people still live in similar cultures across borders. Not all borders really represent different thinking of different people. So every society has a mixture of different folks. I mean, even, for example, a lot of people don't even realize that in Iran, which is in the news right now, there's over 25,000 Jews living in Tehran and other communities. They even reserve a seat on the board of the government for a Jewish member. So this illusion that everybody's divided and always fighting, that's just something that a lot of people would want you to think. So when we use remembering that we're going to die as an excuse to send each other off to battle, it's something to be remembered about maybe the utopia that we could create if we chose to. Now, I'm not delusional. I realize that humanity has some quirks built in. And one important thing that I've realized is that, well, first off, self-awareness is an info hazard. This is something I was going to do a whole podcast about, in the sense that being self-aware, the more self-aware you are, the more you see through the bullshit. And the harder it is to explain your position on why you see through the bullshit. And let me explain. So, if we base our premise in life and our interests on very simple things, like debating what a person said, or what a person did, or what's happening in Hollywood, these are things that can be figured out and solved pretty easily and explained, and you can get down to the bottom of them, right? But when you're talking about extremely nuanced subjects, like the topic of should a country invade another country, these things require an immense amount of background knowledge. And so it's not just self-awareness, but world awareness. So the more that I've learned about how the world works, the more distraught I've become in my understanding of the true lack of knowledge that I had in the past. That the Dunning-Krueger effect ran strong in me, just like everyone else. When we talk about a topic, we want to think we're more knowledgeable than we are. And we all fall victim to this. I don't think anybody's really immune to it. I mean, you see it especially even in highly intelligent scientific communities, where you have these spokespeople for a certain branch of science or physics, and then they start speaking on all these other topics like they're a complete professional. Or look at guys like Jordan Peterson. He's a psychologist, but now he's an expert on, religion and culture and all these other things. There are some people who get a little bit of recognition, and then they become an expert on everything. And I think we see this in leadership quite a bit around the world. A person has it in their mind that, well, if I made it to this position of power, I must be damn good, and my instincts must be right on. So I don't need to really get any new information or actual knowledge about a topic. I already know how I feel. And there are plenty of people out there like that, it is scary. Because many of us peons who just, live in the shadows and go to work and try to make a living and worry about bills, we have no interest in dominating other people, right? Or, taking over somebody else's interests. We just want to do our own thing. But there's a certain mentality that creeps in when a person has a lot of power, or I mentioned this the other day, if a person has a lot to lose, it seems that the more a person has to lose in life, not always, but those are the folks who tend to become the most, they're the folks who talk about preemptive strikes, the people who are afraid of losing everything. And I'm talking everything from not just wars, but down to like lawsuits, slap lawsuits, frivolous lawsuits, hush people, and everything else that crooked people do. And we all have to live with this as the peons and try not to drop to that level of, of humanness, if you want to call it that. But a lot of folks believe that they are the chosen one for whatever they may do. There's a lot of delusion out there, and it's nothing scarier than a person with power that thinks that they make all the right decisions by themselves. And that's where the self-awareness comes in. But not everybody learned that, and I think the problem is that when you do learn how to see yourself, and you learn how to manage yourself properly, you have a different value system. You do things for the reason of it's right, or it's not right, instead of having to justify yourself to other people, or make a big spectacle. You just know in your heart how to live, right? How to be a good person. It's very simple. It is a learned experience, but we all should learn it by the time we're adults. We all have comforting narratives that help us through life, and that's totally understandable as long as we don't dehumanize anyone else. Because as I said, with the borders thing, it's the same as cultures, it's the same as belief systems we don't understand. And the more I learn, the more I realize I didn't know. I've always been a little bit obsessed ever since 9/11 with what goes on in the Middle East, and it's not something I look into all the time, but I've done a lot of background research on the history, and it fascinates me that it really does come down to belief systems being used as a pawn to gain resources. So, in other words, you convince some people that it's about freedom, you convince some people that it's about, defense, you convince others that that's how God's going to return, by building your temple here, or destroying these people, or whatever it might be. And it just makes for so much more of a complicated world for those of us, the 99% of us who are just doing our thing. And we tolerate it, and it's strange. I know facts are uncomfortable. As we uncover more in life about what really goes on in the world, sometimes we get faced with the dilemma of something we stood up for beforehand, that we really stood behind and believed was true, to be wrong. And there's nothing wrong with changing your mind or flip-flopping on an issue. If you find new information, you should always be willing to change your mind. And that's what I mean about self-awareness becoming an info hazard. Because the minute you voice your real thoughts on things, people think you're crazy or don't understand where you're coming from, and that's okay. It's better to stick to what you truly know to be right and wrong. It's getting really bright. I should have brought out my sunglasses. Damn. Maybe I'm the fool. Maybe sometimes the things that go on behind the scenes, and I will understand, I'm not even going to make it sarcastic. I know that there are things going on in the world that I can't comprehend, that only people who are very deep into espionage and seeing what other countries are doing, things that can't be revealed to the public, certain plans, I get that. And I'm grateful to have a government that has a military that can protect us against dangers. However, all the dangers that I've seen have been self-inflicted by our own involvement in the world. So you know, what do you do? What do you do? Well, I'll tell you what you do. Memento Vivo. Remember to live. And that doesn't just mean live our own lives. That means to embrace other people, other interests, to learn about the world, and to not be afraid. Because fear is the killer of truth. I think that was Manly P. Hall that said that. But it's true. Fear is the killer of truth, and when we fear, we tend to believe what any savior tells us. And that was going to be another topic I was going to discuss. The only savior that you need. I said something like, we only need saving from the fact that we feel like we need a savior. In other words, a lot of the chaos in the world is caused by people who expect their culture to be the right one and everybody else is wrong, and that their God will return, or whatever it may be. Too many deaths over beliefs. I think there's nothing wrong with believing in a higher power, but we're all part of it. It comes from within. It's a spiritual journey. It's a ladder you climb. It's not something that you can just like get off at the first stop and kill everybody off and be happy, you know, and have some great afterlife after you've, you know, been complicit in harming others or allowing others to be harmed in the name of your own ascension to your belief system. I think it's wild, but I don't expect human religions to go away because people need something to believe in. But I think that we can eliminate dogma, at least in the most part, if we make an effort. And that's where the pain of self-awareness really comes in. Because I told myself when I was younger I wouldn't, you know, I said I don't believe or disbelieve in God, but I can't see why there wouldn't be a higher intelligence since we are intelligent. It just made sense. I've always thought of the earth as conscious, but until I had a direct Gnostic type experience, I wasn't sure. But after I did, I had nothing to prove. It was, this is my experience. I've had a direct connection with the divine. I have no need to prove it to anyone. I'm going to move on with my life and work, because that's what it's all about. Just keep working, keep working. And it may not be what people want to hear, but that's usually the message. Get something done, make something great, do something. And that's another pain of self-awareness. When you realize that you should try to make an impact in this world, it makes you feel obligated. You get fearful, like I'm getting old, I'm almost 50 and I haven't done anything, I haven't made any huge impact in this world. You know, for me it's like, you know, I'm a carpenter, I built some cool shit, but I want to build something awesome, I want to do something amazing, and I just haven't done it yet. I've created, you know, amazing children with my wife, a great family. I mean, I don't take those things for granted, and my YouTube channel and all of you. It's phenomenal, but, you know, but point is that humans yearn to want to explore and create, and it's something inherent within all beliefs and all cultures. So just remember to live. That's all. Peace and love. Talk to y'all next time. Be well. And yeah, take care now.